Yes, that's right. It's Joe here, Joyrider TV, live with some more Q&A on your Friday, or if you're in Australia, Saturday morning. So we've got some very exciting, interesting topics that we are going to be discussing today, along with whatever the live audience brings forward in the live chat. So some of the most prominent questions we're going to be looking at is the lead question, as I like to call it, is going to be, what are the optimal downwind sailing angles for different types of catamaran? Yeah, because it's not as straightforward as 90 degrees apparent wind. We're going to be looking at how to set the mast rake on older Hobie 14s and 16s, because we talk a lot about going block to block, and on these older boats it just isn't possible. And then we are going to kick off with a question about, we've got a Formula 18 with the deck sweeper mainsail. This question has come in from Jochen, who says, could you tell us more about Formula 18 gybing with the Spinnaker? Should the crew go first through the small triangle under the deck sweeper, or should the helm go across before? So what Jochen is asking, just to put it into, for those of you who aren't familiar with this style of rig, on the modern A-class catamarans and Formula 18s, they have a sail which is called a deck sweeper, and it really does, the bottom of the sail actually touches the trampoline, which means getting across the boat certainly requires a bit more planning. Now, there is a small, sort of, as Jochen puts it, a small triangle at the back, and then you've got your main sheet behind that. So it is quite a small space at the back there. So the question is, who on a jibe is going to go through the little triangle first? Okay, so I think we will just go with that part of the question to kick off. Yeah, so let's start off by talking about a light wind jibe. So when it's light wind, it's not such an issue because in who goes first, because when the wind is lighter, the crew can go around the front of the mast. Yes, on these types of boats, it is extremely common, like tacking, any wind strength, the crew stands up off the trapeze and goes around the front of the mast, in between the gap between the mast and the jib. And you can hold on to the diamond wires on the mast for stability, go round there. And it actually means going round the mast like that is faster for the crew than on a traditional boat going under the boom, because walking across the boat is, of course, much quicker than shuffling across on your knees or doing some sort of crazy commando roll across the trampoline where you might go off the other side. Yeah, so jibing in lighter winds, the crew can do exactly the same thing. And in fact, this is going to cut what could be a reasonably long story quite a lot shorter. If the water is flat and the wind isn't above, let's say, 16 knots, then the crew can go around the front of the mast on the jibes as well. So from really light wind even to trapezing conditions, if the wind isn't so strong. Now, this is more, well, only really for the more modern Formula 18s, which have certainly got more volume in the center of the boat and they can handle it. On the older boats, I perhaps like the legacy Formula 18s up until the designs that were coming, when would that have been? About 2008, 2009, when the hull shapes changed. So legacy Formula 18 hull shape is what you might call a traditional hull shape like this. This is the dagger board or the rudder. And then this was the normal hull shape up until about 2007 to 2009. And then it changed to kind of like flipping upside down. So this style where it would be flat on the bottom and rounded on the top. So that flat bottom offers much more resistance to diving than the rounded bottom. If you think about it, if you try to push, let's say the flat edge of a knife, sorry, the blade edge of the knife into the water goes in really easy. Whereas if you put the flat edge of a knife into the water, there's more resistance. Exactly the same thing that's happening here. So with the more modern F-18s with this sort of hull shape, you get much more resistance, which means, yes, you can go around the front of the main. But on these type of F-18s, unless they've been modified, they wouldn't have the deck sweeper sail anyway. So it's not such an issue. Now, if it's getting windier, who goes first? Or let's just talk a little bit about method for getting through the little triangle first. Now, what I find is definitely, if you get this wrong, I'm not going to call it a world of pain, but it's much more difficult. Always lead with your head. If you try to go across kind of like body first, head last, you're going to catch, in my case, you're going to I catch my helmet on the way through, and you don't want to do that. So go head first through the little hole, and then you find that you've got a lot more space than trying to do it otherwise. So stronger wind, I would certainly be sending the crew through the little triangle first. So procedure, crew comes in off the trapeze, straight through the little triangle. And then as soon as they're through there, then as the helm, you can start to initiate the jibe. Or even, so when they come in off the trapeze, you need to kind of calm it down a bit. Like if you've been sailing on an angle like this, wind coming straight down. If you've been sailing on an angle like this, downwind, with a lot of power, perhaps hull flying, very nice. Then as the crew comes in, we're going to want to turn a few degrees downwind just because we're not going to have their righting moment out on the trapeze. So turning a few degrees downwind, and then that should be calm enough for them to go to the leeward side so that then you can initiate the jibe. Crew goes first. All right, that is actually the answer. Next part of the question, if crew went first, should the helm grab the windward sheet for a moment to keep the kite flying? No, I wouldn't worry about that at all. How do things change if the crew crosses in front of the mast? Yeah, so I think the helm really doesn't need to be getting involved with the spinnaker sheet. If you're jibing reasonably quickly, then the crew should be able to get onto the other side and get it flying. Whereas, especially in the stronger wind, the helm needs to be focusing on the job in hand for him, which is actually steering the boat through the jibe, rather than confusing things by also having to manage the spinnaker sheets as well. If the crew goes around the front of the mast, how does that change? So the crew would have the old spinnaker sheet up until the point where the boat starts turning through the wind. And then as soon as the turn starts, that's when the crew would release that sheet, go around the mast. And as the crew's going around the front of the mast, that gives the spinnaker a chance to blow forwards. And the timing with a bit of practice should be good enough that the crew can then re-establish himself on the new windward side, grab the sheet, pull it through, and it should be pretty seamless. Last year when I was sailing with Max, who is a great Formula 18 crew, at the NACRA event Lake Como, I didn't even know he was going around the front of the mast, even on the windier days. And I didn't ever notice the Spinnaker being slow coming in on the new side. So I think once the crew has got his sea legs on, get around the front of the mast nicely, then shouldn't really notice any hold up there. All right, thanks very much for your question, Jochen, and hope you have some good sailing this weekend. So diving into the live chat, I would like to start off by welcoming Ivan to the Joyrider Academy. Oh yeah. If you didn't know, the Joyrider Academy is it's a part of channel memberships on YouTube. Great way of supporting Joyrider TV, but also you get full access to the Classroom Series, which is 120 lessons divided up into 18 modules. So it's a very clean progression through those modules. And all in the classroom kind of format like this, but more organized and less talking to people in the live chat and more just getting on with the point. So welcome on board to that, Ivan. I'd also like to say hello and thank you very much to Ryan in Maui, who is kicking off the super chats for today. The super chat is a great way to basically show that you appreciate the great information that is coming from me to you and supporting Joyrider TV while you do it. If you want to get involved with the super chat, it's just a dollar bill looking button next to the chat window, and do feel free to get involved there. All right, but into the regular live chat, we've got SA 1510 on board. Greetings from the Baltic Sea coast. Nice to have you on board. SA, I'm just going to abbreviate there, hope you don't mind, says, when we finally get going on the Hobie 16, it will not be from a beach. This is continuing from last week's chat, which was, we went quite deep into how do you launch your boat on your own, get the wheels back on the beach without having to drag your boat up onto the beach. If you want to hear more about that and you didn't attend last week's Q&A, that is where you will find all of that. So SA says, so he's launching from a slipway. Now, how do we park the boat next to a pier? I mean, there are no fenders on board. All right. I think you've sort of answered the question there a little bit yourself, in that if you're going to be regularly putting your boat next to a pier, which is in the same place, and perhaps it's, you know, if it's not a particularly busy pier, is this a pier? Oh, this will do. So let's just see how this would be. So this is the coast, like this, slipway into the water here. Very nice. And then perhaps there's a pier or something sticking out like this, where depending on the wind direction, you could put the boat alongside like that, or hold on, or perhaps alongside like this. If you were going to be using the same pier or jetty or whatever it is to put the boat next to when you're coming in and going out, then I would definitely say, why not get a pair of fenders, get some you know, old, fairly small fenders. They only need to be like that kind of diameter, and tie them to the pier with a very good knot, so that before you put the boat in the water, so then when you put the boat in the water, you could just take it over to the pier. You've got some fenders there, and the boat isn't going to get damaged potentially if the boat starts just tapping up against this structure. Like the worst would be if a powerboat or something went past, gave off some wake, and if it's a floating pontoon, that would be going up and down. The cat would be going up and down, kind of like conversely to that, and you could get really scratched gel coat. It'd be quite upsetting. So definitely, you do need some sort of protection. And then to best place to tie the boat if you are putting it alongside, if it you really want to have it tied at the front and the back. So to have a line, you could just have tied around, if it's a 16, tied around the pylon at the back, just a pretty short rope, and you just take it through whatever you're going to tie it to on the pier, and then back to the boat. And the same with what you're tying the bow with as well, because by taking the line from the 16 to the pier and then back, it means you can untie the boat completely from sitting on your boat, rather than having to untie it from the pier and then you untie it and then you have to jump on. You could do it all from on the 16. There you go. That's what I reckon. But yeah, some sort of protection, definitely the right sort of action. All right. Good morning to Justin in South Texas. Great to have you on board, Justin. Just been reviewing Justin's performance on the speed stick. Oh yes, I've been editing the speed stick video, which seems like for a very long time today. Video will be coming on Sunday at the usual time, the speed stick update. And I can tell you, there are some very big speeds on there. I think I could tell you the fastest we've ever had in more than one category. There we go. And Justin's in there as well. So, all right, we said hello to Ryan. Nice to have you with us, Ryan. It is Friday. I can confirm that. Still, Christian is on board I believe Christian is in British Columbia. Question, anything special about the Hobie 20 sail shape and control? The web says it's advanced. Well, it's all relative, isn't it? I think I think life is all about contrast. And if you contrast the sail of a Hobie 20 against the sail of a let's say a Hobie Wave, for example, then it is much more advanced. But the things that make a sail like that advanced, let's see, what are they? First one is the actual construction of the sail, the way that it's made. The sail will be built with more panels. So it will have a tri-radial cut where this is our sail. Here we go. Let's see how. So there's our sail. So a tri-radial cut would mean that we've got panels like this coming from the bottom, probably a panel like that then does a shape like that. And so these are all just the panels of the sail. Kind of like that, and then you've got your battens in there, more battens as well. So the actual construction of the sail, I think I did that pretty quickly and it's not looking too bad, by the way. Yeah, so the construction of the sail, certainly more advanced. The materials used on the sail as well, more, what would you call them, exotic. So it's going to be using a mylar or a laminated sailcloth. Whereas on a boat like the Hobie Wave, can I remember what a Hobie Wave sail looks like? Let's say it looks something like that. The panel layout on one of these, on a traditional one, not on the Formula Wave, where there are some panel layouts more like this, but traditionally it would be like, that would be your panel layout, very straightforward. Or even on a Hobie 16, that's your panel layout, or on a Dart 18, Prindle 16, 18. This is your kind of panel layout. Maybe there's a few more. Like the panels would join on to the next panel at the batten pockets. So there we are. Now, the next thing that makes it more kind of technical is because of the size of the sail, you've got more control over it. So the first bit of extra control, all right, here we go. We're talking, how are the sail controls different on a Wave to on a 20? First difference is the mast. We can apply pre-bend to the mast using the diamond wires and the spreaders. So the spreaders push that bit of the mast forwards, and the diamond wires, they are under a lot of tension. So those spreaders push that bit of the mast forwards, which put a bit, compared to monohulls, it's only a small amount of pre-bend, but it is certainly, can we do that? Yeah, some pre-bend in the mast, which by putting pre-bend into the mast, it means we have a more accurate control over the sail shape, and the leech tension can be altered somewhat by the bend in the mast. Now, bend in the mast, very nice. Next thing we've got more control over is downhaul. On a boat like a 20, you'll be running something like a 12-to-1 downhaul system, whereas on a Wave, I can't remember what I had on my one in Texas, but it wasn't a 12-to-1, I can tell you that. It was probably like a 4-to-1, so you can't get as much downhaul on the more simple rigged boat. What does the downhaul do? It controls the sail shape, where the center of effort is in the sail. And again, the downhaul will further bend the mast, and bending the mast as well as helping us to flatten the sail is also going to help us to open the leech of the mainsail up, which makes the main more efficient when you're sailing upwind in a heavy wind. Yes. What else makes it more technical? The battens in a 20 are going to be tapered, which means that at the front end, they're thin, and then at the back end, they get a bit thicker. Something like that. Kind of, yeah, all right, not my best. But by them being thinner at the front and thicker at the back, it means that the sail shape that we're getting, because the thinner part of the batten is going to bend more than the thicker part. So because of that, it's going to put the center of effort in the sail further forwards, which is going to make it much more efficient, and our drive is going to be further forwards. Whereas an even or just a straight batten, which isn't tapered, is going to put a very even curve in the sail. So where can we do this? We are running out of space. So having, this is an exaggeration, having the curve in the sail further forwards, our drive from the sail is going to be more like that. And like there's, the boat is going that way, if that's all right. And then having an even curve in the sail like that, it's going to be pulling sideways, still going to pull us forwards, but the drive in the sail isn't going to be as far forwards, so not as efficient. And then I think we can pretty much park that there. Those are the biggest differences between something like a 20 and a more simple or traditional boat there, Christian. Hope that is of help and very interesting. I thought so anyway. All right, Laura is on board. Hello, Laura. Mississippi checking in. Watch out for them crab pots around the course. Yeah, of course, Laura is who I sail the Hobie 16 with when I am in the USA. Looking forward to hitting the international championships in Ocean Springs, Mississippi in September. And yeah, that is going to be one hell of an event. Hope that it's sunny and it blows. There we go. That's what we can hope for. We've got DD Techify on board in Denmark. Great to have you on board. And yeah, everybody is here. Bobby Bruce is on board, getting ready for the Mad Catter next weekend. Yes, the Mad Catter. Believe 50. That 50 means 50th anniversary. Mad Catter. Oh, here we go. I'm going to Mad Catter 50. What's Mad Catter 50? Serious FOMO, fear of missing out. May the something, I think they got the date wrong on the thing, in New York State, USA. That is going to be one of the biggest kind of like open meeting style regattas of the year, I'm sure. Yeah, I would have liked to have gone to that, but unfortunately not. Okay, Scott is dropping it in the slot. I feel that it's been a while, Scott. Nice to have you on board. Good morning to the Joyrider community from Oregon, getting the boat ready to get the season started. Very nice. All right, Bobby Bruce says, who will be joining me in New York next week, sorry. So if you're going to the Mad Cat, just put it in the live chat because that's flavor. All right, we got Greg on board in San Diego. Great to have you with us, Greg. Always a pleasure. Hanny is on board in Amsterdam. I like when people are joining and they say where they're from, because it makes it really special knowing that we're really spanning the globe. I like that very much. All right, Duke is with us. All right, he says, what can you tell me about the Dart Hawk? A friend just picked one up in Los Angeles. Yeah, I could tell you about the Dart Hawk. The Dart Hawk was one of the original Formula 18s, first launched in 1995. There was 3 Formula 18s at the inception, if that's the right word, of the Formula 18 class. There was the Dart Hawk from Dart. That was kind of like the one that everybody thought was the best one at the time. There was the Inter 18 from NACRA, which very much shares the same kind of hull shape as the NACRA Inter 20, which is still very popular in the USA, especially. And the third big class was the Hobie Tiger. The Hobie Tiger, out of those 3, survived the best. And the Hobie Tiger has still been the Formula 18 World Championship winner more times than any other type of Formula 18. You could fact check that. I might be wrong, but it will certainly have been true up until a few years ago. So the Dart Hawk, very similar to the Hobie Tiger in every way. And at the time, we all thought the Dart Hawk looked absolutely fantastic as well. But basically, wherever you see Hobie Tiger, you could change that for Dart Hawk, and it does a very similar job in a very similar way. So I think that's about the size of it. I think that was quite a good brief history of the Dart Hawk. Okay, moving on. We've got Max on board. Max in Rosenheim, Germany, Lake Simsee. Look forward to seeing you next Friday in Vasiliki. Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you too, Max. That'll be lot of fun. And yeah, although if it's next Friday this time, I'll probably be sat right here. So there we go. Okay, we've got Jessie on board. Good afternoon, Jessie from New York. Are you going to the Mad Catter, Jessie? Christian says, one more sneaky cue regarding the Hobie 20. Do we need to reef in a Hobie 20 for the race to Alaska? Fast answer only. I would say depends. It depends. You should be able to sail a Hobie 20 with, if you're sailing with, let's say, a realistic amount of crew weight on board, which would be something like, let's say, 170 kilos, which is 375 pounds combined. If you've got that sort of crew weight on board, you should be able to sail a 20 quite happily upwind in, let's say, 25 knots of wind. It's downwind where you might find it starts getting a little bit juicy, especially if there's a big rolling swell. So if that is the case and you're going downwind, big rolling swell, then yes, it might be safer to reef the mainsail. The 20 has also got a very powerful jib. So another option could be just to not put the jib up if you're going downwind and it's absolutely honking. There we go. Okay, I'd like to welcome Hussein in Egypt to the live chat, and thanks very much for the super sticker or the super chat, Hussein. Of course, the super chat is a great way of supporting Joyrider TV and letting me know that you appreciate the good information. Thank you very much. All right, I think I'm getting pretty good at this, actually. Don't know about you guys. All right, DD Techify, sorry, more on sales. Here we go. Just got a new set of Pentex sails, performance sales. Now, performance sails are the sail brand that is associated with NACRA. They actually make the sails in the same building. I've been there in Holland. Very good sails. So this is for an FX1. How will they compare to my 25-year-old original ones? God, I would think you're just going to have, I think you're really going to feel the difference in the light to moderate winds when you're going to have much better shape out of the new sails. And then when it gets windy and you're just pulling on the downhaul as hard as you can, maybe you're even bending the mast a little bit more, I would say that the old sails will probably, no, in fact, I would think with the new sails, you'll be able to get them flatter in the strong wind. You'll be able to get better shape in the lighter wind. So overall, I think you're going to be feeling like you're winning at all times in terms of sail shape. They're going to feel stiffer. So as the sails get older, they become kind of more soft, which means, like, let's say you're sailing along, you get a gust, a soft sail will kind of absorb the gust a bit like in a spongy way, where it kind of gradually picks you up. Whereas new, stiffer sails, you're going to feel the gusts hit you a little bit harder. So you might just have to be a little bit quicker on the main sheet, or perhaps sail with a bit more downhaul on than you would have done with the old sails, because they'll feel more kind of snappy because they haven't got the give that an old sail will have. But I think overall you're going to love them. So just the mainsail. So nice job, nice choice. Okay, we've got Hans on board. Hans is currently residing in Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece. He can be found on the patio of Wildwind Sailing Holidays. At this time, I would think with a cold drink. Nice to have you on board, Hans. All right, Jesse says, also nervously looking forward to the Mad Catter next week. and hoping to get some warmer weather. Yes, I think that is what the word on the street is. It might be cold. That kind of reduces a little bit this feeling of missing out. Yeah, but the fact that it's going to be really cold, I'm quite happy here on my Greek island where it is certainly warming up. On the Greek island, by the way, I'm running a Hobie Tiger training week next week. Very excited for that one. I think a lot of the contestants, I'm going to call them, for the Hobie Tiger training week are already in Vasiliki getting acclimatized before we do the deep dive on how to dive these boats deep. So very excited to be doing a week on the beach. Yeah, good times coming there. Okay. And I think on to our next big preloaded question. And this is actually came about. Sorry, bit of microphone adjustment. This question actually came about as kind of like quite a small question, but I've turned it into something bigger because that is the sort of thing that I like to do. And this question came from GeoBro, who says, on a Dart 15, where's my Dart 15? Dart 15. What's the most efficient angle going downwind? All right. Seems like that was the question. It's not a very big question, but it is. It's a big question. So we'll start off with the Dart 15 because that was the actual question. So for those of you who don't know, the Dart or Sprint 15 is a boat that is either sailed like in a racing, what would you call it, setup. You'd either sail it just with the mainsail. So if you're single-handed, you'd have just the mainsail. You'd use a trapeze. I think you use the trapeze these days going upwind. Before you didn't use the trapeze, so you had to hike. That's fun. And if you're sailing a Dart 15 with two people, then you would carry a jib as well. Now, the most efficient way to sail a Dart 15 downwind, if you're sailing with the jib, is the same as we talk about quite often. So, true wind, let's have some different colored arrows today. That's fun. True wind, induced, let's go induced wind in red. So that's the wind that we create by going forwards. And I'd just like to say thanks very much to Christian for the super chat, keeping the Q&A ad free. If you're wondering, how is it that these Q&As don't have any ads on them? It's the super chat. So you know what to do. So the induced wind is the wind we create by going forwards. And then the angle that we steer is a combination of the true wind and the induced wind. And this is what we call apparent wind, which we want to have going straight across the boat at 90 degrees. How can we gauge that angle? How do we know that the wind is blowing across the boat at 90 degrees? Here we go. Now, what you can do is take something like this. This is nice. This is the same material as Spinnaker cloth. And I would go for about that kind of length. Or actually, I'd perhaps even go longer on a boat with a single sail. Yeah, so maybe even a full ruler's length. So that's 40 centimeters or 16 inches of wind indicator, which ties on to the bridle wires at the front. And you're just looking for that to be flying straight across the boat. If it starts, so if I'm facing the direction of travel, If it starts blowing forwards like that, it means that we're going too far downwind and we need to head up. If it starts coming too far back, yes, it's going to feel like we're going faster because we are. But if we're going faster because we're sailing too high, we're actually going to sail a much larger distance to get to where we are going. And like if where we're going is down here, we want to be sailing the most direct route that we can, but as efficiently as possible. So that is how we're doing our traditional downwind sailing angle. Now, on a dart 15 with just the mainsail, the boat doesn't go quick enough to get this apparent wind machine working enough to sail the angles. So like if we're going to this buoy here, this buoy, we go this way, then we jibe, and then we go this way. There we go. Let's get rid of all of our arrows. We'll put him here. Okay, but on the dart 15 single sail, what we're going to sail is between 150 to 170 degrees downwind, which would be like this. So not as deep downwind as certain other boats, because if you go straight downwind on the 15, then you start going dead slow. You do need just to work that angle a little bit to generate a bit of boat speed. I've got some notes that I'm reading. If you were wondering what is going on here, yeah. So dead downwind is not going to work. Hitting the angles is not going to work. If you could kind of think, you go approximately halfway between those like dead downwind and the 90 degrees angle, and you won't be far wrong there. Yeah, so that is where we're going to be placing our dart 15. A good way of getting more boat speed, any type of boat on the downwind leg, especially, well, definitely in light winds, is getting your weight further forwards. Let's have a so if we get our weight further forwards, that brings, because the mast is always going to have a bit of rake on it. If we bring the boat further forwards, we're going to be bringing the mast more upright, which is going to be presenting more sail area to the wind, and it's going to be presenting more waterline length to the water. The longer the waterline length is that we're putting in the water, the higher the potential top speed is. So it's a win-win by getting our weight forwards on the downwind point of sail. There we go. And then, of course, as the wind gets up, we're pretty much doing the opposite. We're moving backwards to try not to dig the nose in. All right. So other types of boats. So you could ask, why is it in the light wind, when you're not really going that much faster, why wouldn't you sail deeper downwind when you've got a boat with a mainsail and a jib? It is because when you start going too deep downwind, you start losing all of the power out of the jib. And the reason that we're looking for this kind of angle, we're just scaling up here, is if we think this is as far out as we can have the jib, yeah? And then by having the apparent wind coming in at 90 degrees, it means that we're getting a good flow of air over both sides of the sail, and that is what we're trying to achieve. When we go deeper downwind, okay, we'll just assume we've gone deeper downwind, then we're not going to get any airflow around the back of the sail. It's going to just come into the sail, and we're going to have this turbulent airflow. So that is why we're hitting the 90 degrees. All right, so next, talking about the Hobie 14 Hobie Wave downwind. Now, they can handle going pretty much dead downwind, because on these boats, the speed that you gain by coming up a few degrees really is not of any consequence. So on those boats, the 14 and the Wave, straight downwind seems to be the way to go. Now, the time when it wouldn't be the way to go going straight downwind is when the wind is getting really strong, because if you're going straight downwind, you have got no defense from sticking the bows in apart from getting your weight back. So going up a little bit, so up to about 20 knots straight downwind, bit more wind, more than 20 knots, and we'll just cook it up a little bit, because then we'll be sailing faster. And what happens when we sail faster is we reduce the pressure in the rig. If you imagine we're sailing straight downwind, wind blowing 25 knots, boat speed 10 knots, not particularly quick. That means there's 15 knots of pressure hitting the sail, trying to force the bows down. However, even if we can just heat it up so that we go more like 13, 14 knots of wind, that is going to make quite a significant difference to our ability to keep the boat upright. There we go. Thought that sounded pretty good. So that is what we're doing on those types of boat. Now, another type of boat, single sail. We're talking single sail boats here. On the A class. Now, the A class is a very, very lightweight, very high aspect mainsail. And it's slightly different on the A cat because it's so light, so efficient. So what we would do on the A class or A cat is, in winds above 6 knots, let's say, we'll just bring the boat up towards the wind. And it's very much the same as sailing a boat with a spinnaker, same sort of steering technique. We're just going to turn the boat up towards the wind, sitting quite far inboard until we can just pop this windward hull out of the water. And then because the boat is so light, so efficient, we then ride the boat downwind with the windward hull out of the water and try to go as deep as we possibly can as we come further downwind. So if it feels like the hull is dropping, we'll bring the boat up towards the wind. If we feel that the hull is lifting more, then we know we can turn more downwind. Exactly the same as with the spinnaker. I'd like to say thank you very much to Hanny for the super chat, keeping the Q&A ad free. In fact, I think this is a it might even be a super sticker. I don't really know the difference, but thank you very much. Glad that this information has been valuable to you at this time. So yeah, ACAT, very much like sailing with a spinnaker. When the wind gets stronger, of course, then we're just sailing the boat to keep the power on as much as we can, but without risking sticking the nose in. So there, we'll take it more onto the 90 degrees apparent again, so that we go faster, like how we were just talking about it with the other boats that sail deeper in lighter wind. Okay, so, and the angles that we sail with the ACAT would be very, very similar to that of a spinnaker boat. So on the spinnaker boat, in light winds, in really light winds, the crew would be holding the spinnaker directly from the sheet, not through the block, in really light winds, like 4 knots of wind. And the crew is just feeling the pressure in the sheet. If the crew has zero pressure in the sheet, that means that there's no drive coming from the spinnaker at all. So the crew would say to the helm, bring the boat up to, well, no, probably wouldn't say that. He'd say, head up, need some pressure. So the helm would turn the boat towards the wind until the crew can feel that bit of pressure in the sheet. And that then becomes your starting course angle with the spinnaker in super light wind. Once the wind starts getting a bit stronger, it becomes much more obvious, because if you've been lifting the hull slightly on the upwind, then on the downwind, we're going to be expecting to lift the hull as well. So then you turn the boat towards the wind, much like the ACAT, until the windward hull comes out of the water, and then you steer the boat to keep that amount of power on. So if the hull comes up too much, we turn downwind. If the hull starts dropping, we turn upwind. And when it comes to the hull going up or down, we only steer so that the hull stops. We're not actually, like, if the hull starts lifting, we're not steering down so that the hull starts dropping. We just steer down so that the hull stops lifting any higher. That takes practice to get that smooth. We're really trying to keep the steering to a minimum. All right, I think I'm going to park that one there. Cheers. All right, back to the live chat. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty good answer to a very short question. All right, we've got Levi on board. Yes, that's right. Levi's here. Better late than never. New job, same company. It's taken up all my time. I think that's Levi, who is sailing the Hobie Wave. Seen that Levi signed up for. I'm doing when I come to the USA in September, I am going to be participating in the first, I believe, Wave GP event to hit the USA. Very exciting. 30 competitors in a round robin type competition where everybody sails against everybody on provided boats. I think at this time there are 7 slots left available. So if this sounds pretty good, it's in Florida, near to Pensacola, and that is in sort of like the middle of September. And I think it's going to be a good time. But you better watch out, because we all know who is going to be taking the cheese at that one. Yes. Okay. Christian says super stickers can't have attached messages. This is interesting. Yeah. So a super sticker, you can't attach a message. A super chat, you can attach a message. There we go. So Levi says, hope everyone is well. I hope so too. I hope everybody is. I hope that certainly some of you have got some sailing lined up for this weekend. If you are going sailing this weekend, get on the speed stick. The action is heating up. If you've just tuned in, new speed stick video coming on Sunday. If you were watching from the start, same applies, of course. All right. So Scott, who is dropping it in the slot, says, if the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, wouldn't going straight downwind goose swinging be quicker than the multiple jibes downwind? Yes, this is the big it's the payoff. It's now, I've never actually done the maths on this, because there are some mathematics involved in working out what is more efficient. So that is what we're talking about here, Scott, is that on a boat like a 16, the boat speed increases significantly enough when you get the apparent wind machine working 90 degrees. So by the time you get to the leeward mark, compared to a boat that has gone in a straight line, you'd probably pull out several boat lengths on that other boat. So that is the Y. It's called VMG, Velocity Made Good, which is different for many types of boats, which we've been talking about here, where it's this payoff between speed and angle. And for some boats, going straight downwind has the payoff. For other boats, sailing a series of broad reaches has the payoff. On a 16, sailing in very light wind with a lightweight team, you can sail deeper than 90 degrees apparent wind because the boat has such good power to weight ratio. So it's always a bit of a balance, a payoff, a way up. All right. So Levi says, yes, I did. I'll be the guy in the back disturbing, distributing beers to everyone, and they pass me because I'm very, very slow. I think anything is possible, Levi. So good luck. Ryan also agrees with Scott's comment. I think that's covered. All right, Jesse says, do we just submit the speed stick if to you directly still? Yes. So the way that the speed stick works is if you go out sailing, take a GPS device with you, put your phone in a dry bag, running an app like Water Speed, I think is the best phone app at this time. Soon there's going to be a new app. We can actually do a for those of you who are here or watching this, we're now testing the Joyrider app. So hold on. So if we hit speed stick, this is the Joyrider speed app. Can we focus, please? Maybe we cannot. Okay, and there's two modes. There's classic, start recording, and then classic tells you how fast you're going, but it also gives you your speed chart as you go along. All right, let's stop that one. Or the one which I'm particularly happy with is called Night Rider. Hold on, that's not Night Rider. Can we do that? Oh yeah, Night Rider. So you set what your target speed is, which is like for your range. So I've set 12 knots here. And then there's this green line, which as you go faster goes up through the colors. Very nice. Like the speedometer on Kit, the car in Night Rider. There we go. So that is coming soon, but it's we're just doing testing at the moment and a bit more development before we set the Joyrider app loose to the world. Very excited about that though. Ryan says I can hear the theme song. Yes. Apparently they're doing a new movie. Don't know if that's true, but I'd watch it. Yeah, so speed stick. Take your GPS device, phone, dry bag, very sensible. Or if you've got a watch that does such a thing, then just with your GPS running on your watch, make sure you stop your GPS when you come back to the beach. The Joyrider Speed Stick app is actually going to take care of that for you. That's a nice feature. And then once you've done your session and perhaps you've got home, then you can email me. So this is one of the reasons I wanted to make the app, because I think having to email in your results is a bit of, it's a point of resistance, which means less people are going to be inclined to get involved. And I want the most people to get involved because I think it's great to have a competition like this running, and it gives the competition more credibility the more people that do it, of course. So email me with your results. What I need to know when you email me is helm, crew, type of boat, location, very important, and how fast you went in knots. And then what's also nice when you send in your results is if you've got a photograph or a bit of a video clip of your sailing session, or even if it's just a photo of you and your crew standing next to the boat looking pleased, that's great. It makes the update video much more colorful. Update video coming on Sunday. So that is how it's working at this time. The leaderboard, apart from this week because of the update video, is updated every Monday. So after your weekend session, send me the results like Sunday evening, so that then on the Monday you'll be on that update for that week. There we go. Okay. All right. Oh, right. Levi in the live chat. Levi's going to be out on his wave this weekend practicing. Any good idea for racing oriented drills for sailing alone? Yes, I've got a favorite. There's a few favorites, but all right, let's do two. And this could be done just with one fixed point on the water. So that fixed point could be a buoy or a buoy, something you can see. It could be like a post that's in the water, anything like that. And the first exercise would be the start line exercise, where you kind of imagine that that buoy is one half of a start line, square to the wind, and you set yourself a timer. But because you've only got one buoy, what we're trying to achieve here is we're trying to put the boat in a very specific place at a very specific time. So you could set like a 2-minute timer or even a 1-minute timer. So then at 1 minute, you want to have your boat around here, so that when the timer expires, your windward bow is right next to the buoy. And as you sail past it, the buoy needs to be close enough that you could give it a slap should you want to. So that is exercise one, timing your approach to the start line. You could do different approaches where you could, you know, if you're going to do this like 20 times, which I'd recommend, you could do sometimes where you hang back for longer and then you approach with more speed, which would be more appropriate as a method sailing up to a start line in a smaller fleet. But if you were sailing in a bigger fleet, you would approach from earlier with a lower speed, and then with 5 seconds or 10 seconds to go, then you bring the boat up to speed. But you could do that with one buoy. Another good exercise to do is have your boat a good distance downwind from the buoy and just sail as if it was the windward mark. Easy. Very good exercise in judging your tacking angle and hitting the lay line. And then when you get to the buoy, bear away, in wide, out tight, keeping your sail trimmed perfectly as you bear away. So easing it out as you turn downwind and getting onto your downwind leg as quickly and efficiently as possible. And then the final one, I think you might be able to guess this one, would be we start off directly upwind from the buoy and we're going to sail downwind to get to the buoy. And same thing, we're judging the angles that we're jibing at. So on a wave, you're coming pretty straight downwind, so not quite such an issue. But even though you can go downwind on the wave, we don't want to be coming downwind straight into the buoy like that. We want to be coming in downwind with at least a boat length away from the buoy, so then we can do a nice mark rounding. And again, sheeting in the sail as you go around the buoy so that we come away from it with good speed. Those are 3 very good exercises, which I should be doing myself. and will. So thank you very much. There we are. All right. So Christian says, check out things like polars for given boat. Welcome to the rabbit hole. Okay, you might have to give us a bit more information on what polars are in this context, Christian. All right, so Levi says, yes, I'll be trying those drills. Great stuff. Okay, so we have been going for over an hour now. So if this is still interesting to you, do feel free to hit the super sticker or super chat as I go on to our last preloaded question. So this one comes from Stig, who is in Brighton, which Brighton is on the south coast of the UK. And it has a lively catamaran sailing scene down there. Okay, so Stig says, I can't get my 1983 Hobie 14 Turbo block to block. The hook part of the mast base, yeah, we've talked about this before. So how far over can I go over here? So mast base, something like that. Hook part of the mast base, and then that this is kind of like an exploded view, but there is the mast step which that goes into, and so the hook part of the mast base was scraping on the mast step and it would stop it from rotating freely. Yeah, so that is going to catch on there if you have the mast raked back too far on boats beyond a certain age. I replaced the mast step over the winter, but it's still happening. So he's put the mast more forwards and it's fine and not scraping, but he can't get the blocks close together. So less likely to get full beans or so close to the wind. Yeah, so I think part of the problem here with, or it's not a problem, it's a perceived problem, I believe, with the older boats, which is that the geometry of the older boats, like the cut of the sails, was quite different because the older boats were designed. Have I got a boat? Yeah, of course I have. Were designed to have the mast much more upright, whereas the trend over the years is to sail with more mast rake. So back in the day, this would be like the angle that you'd have your mast at. And then as time went on, like into mid 90s, started becoming more popular to put the mast back further like this. But then first problem we encounter is the catching mast foot nose, stopping it from rotating. And the kind of concept of going block to block, it's just on the more modern 16s and 14s. This is kind of like how the geometry of these boats works. So if you've got an older boat, then don't expect it to go block to block the same as a newer boat, because the cut of the sail is likely to be quite different. So even on an older boat, if you've got your mast back, your sail might be much higher up like this. So it would be impossible to get it block to block unless you put the mast a really, really far back. And if you put your mast really far back, what that does is it means the boat is going to be even more difficult to tack, because as you come out of the tack, the mast is to the back, which is going to try to drive you back up into the wind a lot. So what you're trying to do with your mast rake, I would say first thing you want to try to do with your mast rake is set it so that the boat feels nice, so that you can exit the tack nicely, so that it feels like the rudders are balanced. If you put the mast too far back, your rudders might start feeling really heavy, and getting block to block, because also you on the old style main sheet blocks where you've got on the boom, you've got two different attachment points there and one at the bottom, then it's it's not going to work the same. So don't be too worried about getting block to block. You can still send it. You can still give it the beans without the blocks coming together. It's not essential. So like if you look on different classes of boat, like on the Formula 18s or on a Dart 18, you'll never get those blocks together. So don't worry about it too much. If you do have a boat which doesn't go block to block, like for example, is a good example, like on the Hobie 14 that we have at Wildwind Sailing Holidays, which has a non-original mainsail on it. I actually, so that the main sheet doesn't have to be as long, the rope of the main sheet doesn't have to be as long. What I prefer to do is, here's the boom, we're getting a bit more boomy, is to actually have a strop piece of very strong rope, which comes from the boom and comes down a bit like that. I'll draw this bigger, I think. So let's have a boom. Here we go. So there's the boom. So we have a strop that comes down like this, and then the top block goes onto the strop. So it's much closer to the bottom block. There's the bottom block onto the traveller. There's the back beam. And there is the rope. So that the strop length is very specific, so that I know that when I pull it block to block, that is as much as I'm ever going to need to pull the main sheet in. There we go. So that's a little workaround if you want to have a shorter main sheet. Because if you think about it, if you've got that block all the way up at the boom, when especially, well, you've got 6 times that distance of rope extra to have on there. So there you go. That is what I think about that. So I hope that helps there, Stig, and everybody else who is out there. Just a few more. So Christian, about the polars. Polars show us the best VMG for a given presentation of sails. Easy to read, highest projection on the y-axis of the polar. Math geekery for the win. Hashtag. All right, nice. And hashtag I sail for the math. LOL. Okay, yeah. I didn't get that at all. But thank you very much. All right, Scott says, thanks, Joe and Christian. Too mathy for me. I'll just focus on sailing fast. Yes, me too. All right, so thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in. Thanks, everybody, for... it's great to see how many of the people tuning in are channel members. That's really nice that you guys are supporting Joyrider TV. Thanks for your continued support. And be back on Sunday with the Speed Stick update video. Make sure that you catch that one, because there is quite a lot of astonishment and production value in that. All right, nice one. All right, have a great weekend, and thank you very much. Oh, and I'd just like to say, Archie is on board. Hello, just saw this and joined. Goodbye. Yeah, nice one, Archie. All right, have a good weekend.